According to Kierkegaard, death is actually the key to a meaningful life. Most of the time, we treat ourselves like objects. When we think about who we are, we say, oh, I have this job, I live at this house, I'm this tall, whatever. But we define ourselves by all the terms of the world. And when we evaluate ourselves, we think about ourselves in those terms too. We think, how successful was I at measuring up to this scale? What's my salary? How many years did it take me to do this thing? How am I advancing in the social level? Right? We take the terms of the world and we treat ourselves as one of the objects in the world, and we measure ourselves by those worldly standards. In his concluding unscientific postscript, Kierkegaard refers to that as being world historical. But Kierkegaard's point is, we're subjects. And so what really matters is that we actually learn to live in a way that recognizes our subjectivity instead of living in a way that interprets us as objects. So instead of trying to be world historical, he says we have to try to become subjective, which he says is the highest task for us. Well, think about that issue precisely with respect to death. How do you usually think about death? Well, normally you say this or that person died on this day. Or you say about yourself, oh, I wonder, when I'm going to die. When you get older, you might think, oh, I've only got so many more years to live, or something like that. But again, what we're doing is taking ourselves, imagining ourselves in the context of the world, and thinking where we fit on that world's timeline. Let's say you do die at 4 p.m. on June 4th, 2029, or something like that. You won't know it. You're there describing your death from the point of view of the other people in the world who will be there to look upon you as an object and put a date and time to it. But that can never be the reality of your death for you. So, is it the case that death doesn't have any reality or meaning for us? No, that's not the case. The fact is, we are the kind of being, presumably unlike dogs or cats or whatever else, we're the kind of being who knows about ourselves that we're going to die. And there is a way to relate to that subjectively as opposed to objectively. That's not a matter of knowing when in the world's clock your time's going to end. It's not that. It's to live in a way that appreciates, oh, this is the only time you have. To live your death subjectively is to realize this life now, with all its spatial and temporal limitations and specificity, this is the only one you've got. So it's essential that you realize you have to make this life meaningful, rather than imagining that the world is somehow going to make your life meaningful for you, right? Instead of taking the terms of the world and trying to evaluate yourself by that, thinking that somehow the world is going to grant you first place or ninth place or whatever it is, you have to be the one who owns the responsibility for figuring out what really matters in life and for living your life now in a way that responds to that. And so that, Kierkegaard says, is living with the uncertainty of death in every moment.